What's going on, everybody? It's Shro here. I got a request for a talent guide video, so figured I'd make one. This video is going to be separated into a few different parts. I'm going to have them up on the screen here. So if you are interested in a specific part, you'll be able to go to the time that I have listed, and it should just take you directly to that part. So if you're going to watch the whole video, we're going to have this separated into a few different parts. PvE for rating and Mythic Plus, and then the second part of this video is going to be for PvP, which will be separated into Arena and Battlegrounds, and then the last part of this video, the third part, will be Covenant Conduits. I'm not going to go over specific covenants and different covenant choices within each and every single covenant, because ultimately that's going to be up to you, and there will be guides out there for probably every single covenant. But I'm just going to go over the conduits that you should be looking for in PvE and PvP, and essentially what's probably going to be best for both situations. So let's go ahead and start with the PvE for Mythic Plus. I am obviously here in the Necrolord Covenant, in their training dummy area, so we're going to be, I'll be trying to show a few things that you can do with different talent combos and stuff like that. I've just got generic talents right here. This is by no means what you should be running. This is just me clicking on all of them over here to start the video. So, for those of you out in the world that, like to do Mythic Plus, and you're a Mythic Plus hero, you enjoy Mythic Plus to a very high degree, this is going to be the section for you. We're going to talk about essentially pretty much two different builds, I would say, that are pretty good for Mythic Plus, and I'm going to essentially go over what I like to use and also what you can use and probably what is best to use. At least I'll try to incorporate that all into each section, essentially. So for Mythic Plus, let's go ahead and just go for row by row, and I'll explain why you want to take certain talents over others, and etc, etc. So this might be a long video, might honestly separate it into parts, we'll see. I'll try to be as quick as I can. No promises. So, for Mythic Plus, first row, we're going to go over each talent and what they're good for. Obviously, if you are a ELE Shaman and you PvE, you're going to know that Echo of the Elements is pretty much one of your best talents on the first row. So, most of the time, you're probably going to want to go Echo of the Elements. However, for Mythic Plus, you can also go Earth and Rage. In Mythic Plus, you're probably going to be moving a lot, so Earth and Rage for high AoE situations honestly isn't that bad. It's just good, consistent damage on one or two targets. Essentially, it's not too bad to go for. Most of the time, you're going to be spamming Chain Lightning and Earthquake in Mythic Plus, and the only time that you're going to be using Lava Burst is on bosses, as well as to buff your Earthquakes and your Chain Lightnings during those big AoE pulls for Mythic Plus. So honestly, either one of these is totally fine. I personally like to go Earth and Rage in Mythic Plus and Mythics, and in dungeon clearing, just because it's something I don't have to think about. Again, it's good, consistent damage, and I just think the ability aesthetically looks really cool. I really wish that Earth and Rage was baseline to give Elemental Shaman like another little dot, and I just really like the ability. So for Mythic Plus, you can go either Earth and Rage or Echo of the Elements. Static Discharge, not really up to par with these two talents right now. I mean, Static Discharge might have its place in PvP, but honestly, for Mythic Plus, it's pretty much just straight garbage. Second row. Honestly, any of these talents are okay. Echoing Shock is probably what you're going to most likely go with in those high-end Mythic Plus runs when you start timing out your cooldowns and your teammates' cooldowns. You basically want to rotate cooldowns on each big trash pull. You might end up going Echoing Shock because it's going to give you the most amount of damage that's controlled, which is very good. Aftershock, you can go that as well. It's pretty good in Mythic Plus. It's something you don't have to think about. Sometimes you'll just put Earthquake down and you might just get 3 other Earthquakes in a row, so it's pretty nice. It really feels good when you get those procs, like especially in single target. If you have the Echoes of the Great Sundering legendary that buffs your Earthquake damage, I mean, this talent will sometimes just make you into a god. but that's the problem with it, is that it's not completely reliable. On this row, you essentially have burst damage, RNG, kind of consistent burst damage, and Elemental Blast is also really good for Mythic Plus because this gives you more consistent damage. With the fact that Elemental Blast gives you 30 Maelstrom now, you're essentially always going to have enough Maelstrom to spend on like a Earthshock or an Earthquake if you're using the Echoes of the Great Sundering legendary in Mythic Plus, which is most likely what you will be using in Mythic Plus. Elemental Blast gives you another way to essentially build Maelstrom up very fast, and it's very good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It gives you extra stats like crit and mastery and haste, which are all pretty good in AoE situations. So honestly, there's no bad choice here. It's just really up to you, depending on what you want to do. I personally like to run Elemental Blast and Echoing Shock, and I've been messing around with Aftershock recently. It is very fun, like I said, to get those procs over and over, but honestly, this row is really personal preference for Mythic Plus. But what I would probably do is Echoing Shock most of the time and Elemental Blast. It just depends on what you want to do. If you want to have those huge burst moments where you pull like 10k DPS or 8k DPS, go Echoing Shock. But essentially all of your damage will be inside of those cooldowns, Stormkeeper most of the time, and and Echoing Shock locked behind your Earthquake legendary. So there's no real bad choice here. We'll just choose Echoing Shock as you're probably the most baseline choice for Mythic Plus. For the 30 row of talents, it really doesn't matter what you do here. I would say just go Static Charge for Mythic Plus. There's really no bad answer here. Spirit Wolf can get you out of some situations, but every moment that you spend in Ghost Wolf is a moment that you're not doing damage, and that extra movement speed and damage reduction stacks up over time. So most of the time you're not going to get the primary benefit out of this talent regardless. Earth Shield can be good in Mythic Plus, but it gives you, it gives your group some more utility. You put it on the tank, whatever. I mean, you don't really want to put it on yourself realistically, but you could if you need a little bit more survivability. But realistically, Static Charge is probably going to be your best one because it's going to give you 20 seconds off of the cooldown for for Capacitor Totem, and it's just going to give you a little bit more utility for each pull. Essentially in Mythic Plus, which, when you're in Mythic Plus, you're pulling huge groups most of the time to try to time those keys. So, I mean, I would technically always take Static Charge because I technically think it's just the best one for Mythic Plus. When you get a little bit higher stats for the 35 row, Storm Elemental might be good. Liquid Magma Totem, honestly, probably not your best choice. It's pretty hard to get your tank to stand still in your Liquid Magma Totem for more than 15, probably more than 5 seconds. They're going to be moving mobs around, especially at the higher end Mythic Plus. You're constantly going to have to be moving, so you're really not going to see a lot of value out of this. Storm Elemental is okay, but honestly, you're probably just better off using Master of the Elements. With Master of the Elements, it's just pretty much one of the best talents you have. I honestly think it should be baseline as well. It used to be as a clear casting bonus long ago for Elemental Shaman. But Master of the Elements gives you a buff on your next Earthquake after you use Lava Burst, which is mostly what you're going to be using it for in Mythic Plus. And if you have, again, Echoes of the Great Sundering, it's going to be buffing that 175 additional damage Earthquake with, an additional 20%, and that adds multiplicatively, I believe. So it's a 20% extra damage on that additional 175% is pretty good. So most of the time, just run Master of the Elements. If we get to a point in the game where we're able to equip multiple legendaries, you're probably going to want to go Storm Elemental with the Skybreaker's Fiery Demise legendary. If you could equip that and Echoes of the Great Sundering at some point way later down the road, those legendaries intertwine really well with Storm Elemental. So, I mean, if you really want that huge amount of massive burst in AoE, Storm Elemental is what you want to do. If you know that you're going to have like this one pull in a dungeon that's just ridiculous, you would want to go Storm Elemental. But most of the time, for more consistent damage on bosses in Mythic Plus, as well as trash, you're going to want to just go Moat, Master of the Elements. For the level 40 talent tree, honestly, what I would do most of the time is Ancestral Guidance. It gives you a lot of utility in a Mythic Plus run. If your group starts to get in trouble, you can just pop this spam chain lightning, throw down some earthquakes. It's going to heal your group, you know, for a pretty good amount. So that's probably what I would run. But honestly, it's up to you. It's personal preference. Nature's Guardian naturally gives you more survivability. So if you're having trouble surviving in Mythic Plus, or if you're like standing in too much fire or whatever, maybe take this. If you know that you're going to be, you know, pulling huge groups of mobs, I would take Ancestral Guidance. But you can also use Windrush Totem. It's really up to you. For the 45 talent row, you're probably going to want to go just Ice Fury. Ice Fury for you're not going to be using Ice Fury on trash mobs for the like the frost shocks, but you're going to be using it to build Maelstrom, which is going to help you get more Maelstrom for that earthquake that you build up. You know, Earth Shock into earthquake with your echoes, legendary. A large portion of Mythic Plus damage is going to come from your earthquake from that legendary. So I mean, Ice Fury helps you build Maelstrom very quickly to get that extra earthquake out. You'll probably maybe go Primal Elementalist with Storm Elemental, like I said, some point in the future for that really big, huge burst damage. But right now, I would just go Ice Fury. It's going to help you on bosses in Mythic Plus. It's going to help you on those bigger mobs where you have to move around a lot, because most of the time you're just going to pop an Ice Fury to generate Maelstrom. You'll have the buff up, and then whenever a giant AoE thing comes around, like I think about Necrotic Wake, where you have the giant like Marogar looking Bone Storm guy. He puts that giant freezing AoE around. You know, you have Ice Fury up, you can just move out of it and spam Frost Shock on him. Essentially, if you pull him with like other mobs, you know, it makes it a little bit more convenient. But really, all you're using Ice Fury for is the Maelstrom generation. Surge of Power, I don't think really scales very well right now in the current, you know, state of the game. Maybe when we have more legendaries, it'll come online. Like if we get Skybreaker's Fiery Demise, and you know, being able to apply multiple Flame Shocks. You know, being Necrolord for myself as well, you know, you can apply 3 Flame Shocks with like 2 globals if you have Surge of Power, which is pretty good. But what I recommend is Ice Fury just as a Maelstrom generator to put down more earthquakes. For the level 50 row, for Mythic Plus, you're going Stormkeeper. I hate to say it, but maybe later on down the road, maybe you go Ascendance for like a Tyrannical week when you have to burn a boss really hardcore. But honestly, Stormkeeper right now, pretty much the way to go. It's just all around your best talent up here. Unlimited power shouldn't even be in the game. This is trash. Your best pick is Stormkeeper, and honestly, I think that it's kind of designed to be that way. Ascendance can be good, but honestly, right now, Lava Beam is not going to outperform Stormkeeper for consistency throughout a Mythic Plus run. And yeah, that's pretty much my build that I would use for Mythic Plus right here. You're looking at it. This is pretty much all I would recommend, guys. This is the build I would use if I was just doing Mythic Plus, trying to progress. Again, for the level 25 talent row, if you need more consistent damage, maybe go Elemental Blast so you can build Maelstrom better. But Echoing Shock gives you that big chunky burst for every other pull, essentially. And if you are going into the high keys, you're going to be able to use Echoing Shock and Stormkeeper maybe twice in a pull. It just depends on how high of a key you push. But yeah, that's essentially my Mythic Plus build right here, guys. This is what I would use. And so now we're going to go into the raid and single target portion of the video. So let's reset our talents here. So, for raiding, single target, most of the time you're probably going to see this build on like Icy Veins or Wowhead, but I'm just going to go ahead and put the build out right here so that you know. This is most of the time right now, this is what you're going to be using, guys. Honestly, again, on the 25 talent row, the DPS difference between these 3 talents right now is almost minimal. It's like so minimal, it really doesn't even show. You can do sims on raid bots, Echoing Shock and Elemental Blast. I think there's like a 10%, not even a 10%, sorry, like a 10, like literally 10 difference in DPS. Like maybe Elemental Blast gives you 10 more DPS than Echoing Shock. So honestly, it's really up to you. Once we're able to unlock next week, this is currently the 3rd of December, so next week when the world boss comes out, this one right here, it should be a 100% chance to drop the memory of the Windspeaker's Lava Resurgence. When this legendary is able to be used, that will be your best legendary for single target. When that legendary, when I have it, essentially, when everyone has it for raid, I might mess around with Aftershock because I think it would be pretty freaking cool to have moments where you Earthshock, Lava Burst, Earthshock, Lava Burst, Earthshock, Lava Burst. Like, if you get those procs 2 or 3 times in a row, which does happen, it's going to feel really good. You're just going to be jumping around, just spamming Earthshock and Lava Burst, just pumping them out. It's going to feel really good. But honestly, for right now, if you don't have that legendary, like I have Echoes of the Great Sundering right now, so I'm going to be pretty much using that. Let me put my PvE gear on. How about that? I'm going to be using Echoes of the Great Sundering pretty much for the beginning of the raid tier for normal week and heroic week next week. But for Mythic week, I will be using Windspeakers 100% for my raid progression. That is by far the best single target DPS legendary for ELE right now. Skybreakers might have some usefulness later on down the road, but I don't think it's going to outperform Windspeakers, at least early on. I mean, Skybreakers comes from the very end of the raid anyway, and Skybreakers does have some pretty good synergy with Storm Elemental. We'll have to see if people build or make a build around Storm Elemental and Skybreakers, because I mean, you could do like Surge of Power and Storm Elemental and just really start pumping. But honestly, you're probably going to want to use Primal Elementalist with Skybreakers just because it's going to be coming off of cooldown so much more often, etc., etc. But for right now, for raid, single target, this is probably the build you're going to want to go. I'm not going to go over each tier for this portion of the video, except for the 25 tier. Like I said, you can really just do whatever you want. And for the 40 row, I would probably use Windrush Totem. But for early on Mythic raid progression, you're probably going to want to go Nature's Guardian to be a little bit more selfish for yourself, because Nature's Guardian is going to help you with progression, because it's going to help you with your survivability. And if you are Necrolord, you're going to have that talent as well as potentially this one. Or no, you're actually going to go Enemy. Emini? I don't even know. But this talent right here for Necrolord is pretty good. The little shield you get. But we're not going to go over conduits and stuff like that yet. Or, you know, your Covenant choice, because everybody chooses different. I know that there are some ELE Shamans that have gone Venthyr, there are some ELE Shamans that have gone Night Fae, and there are some that have gone Kyrian. I mean, there's probably, if you know an ELE Shaman, there's probably one that you know in each Covenant. Like, it's really up in the air, and it's really just up to what the people want to do. I personally just like Necrolord. And on single target, Necrolord I'm pretty sure pulls the most, which is why, again, I'm Necrolord, because I'm doing progression rating. So, again, this is pretty much the build you're going to want to use. Ice Fury does pull ahead of Primal Elementalist right now, just by a few hundred DPS, and it also helps you with mobility. And in the early portion of raid tiers, mobility is king as an ELE Shaman. The fact that we have Spirit Walker's Grace again is going to help us a lot with that. But, yeah, this is pretty much the raid build, guys. Echo of the Elements is a no-brainer. Elemental Blast, Spirit Wolf to help you survive, you know, parts of a raid where, you know, you just need to take less damage. You're not going to get any value out of Static Charge. Echo, Nature's Guardian, whatever you want on this row, really. Windrush or Nature's Guardian, I wouldn't go Ancestral Guidance. Ice Fury, and then Stormkeeper. It's just going to outperform Ascendance again in single target. So, that's pretty much it for PvE, guys. This is going to be the build that I run for single target for raiding next week whenever we start the raid on Tuesday. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hey guys, I just finished recording the entire video, and you'll see that in the second part of this video. I decided I'm going to separate it, so I hope you enjoyed the PvE section of this video. The next section of this video is going to be PvP. I'm going to talk about some conduits for PvP, and that's pretty much it. I didn't cover conduits for PvE, so let me do that really quick. Conduits for PvE, you're going to want to take the conduit that buffs your Covenant ability, which is going to be, you know, for me it's Tumbling Waves. Primordial Wave has a 24% chance to not incur a cooldown. For Venthyr, you know, just take that conduit that buffs your Covenant ability. And then the second one that you're going to want to use, you're also going to want to use the mini soulbind, by the way. But for an offensive conduit, you're going to want to use the one that increases your fire elemental's duration. 100% take that one. That's just pretty much one of the best ones you can take. For finesse conduits, for PvE, maybe take Spiritual Resonance or Thunderous Pause. Those are probably going to be your best for a little bit more mobility when you use Bloodlust or when you have to use Ghost Wolf inevitably to move out of AoE. And for Mythic Plus, you're probably going to want to take Shake the Foundations. And, I mean, that's pretty much it. Use the Covenant one, the one that buffs your Covenant ability, and then Shake the Foundations for AoE Mythic Plus. For single target and raids, take the increased fire elemental duration and the one that buffs your Covenant. And that's pretty much it. The rest of them are up to you. The defensive ones, maybe take the increased health on Earth Elemental, and that's pretty much it. So, yeah, I'm going to end the PvE section of the video here. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Keep doing you. Like and subscribe. I super appreciate it if you made it to the end of this video. And, yeah, the second part of the video will be PvP talents and PvP conduits and stuff like that. I recorded the whole thing in one sitting. It was about 40 minutes long, so I decided to separate it. So, yeah, catch you next time.